Greetings, students of the Force and acolytes of the galaxy, and welcome back to the channel. Episode 5 of Kenobi was released, and in this episode, we got to see a great many things that a lot of us have been anticipating for so long. Warning, huge Kenobi spoilers ahead. In this episode, we finally learned the origin of Riva, the third sister, one that was suspected for a while now. It seems that group of younglings in the very beginning of episode 1 did not make it out alive, and Anakin slew them himself in the hallways. Riva, having barely survived being stabbed, lied in wait until the coast was clear, pretending to be dead. Obi-Wan uncovers the truth about her allegiance to the Empire, that she was never truly invested in being one of them, and was never invested in being an Inquisitor, but rather that Riva was planning the long game and rising up the ranks of the Inquisitors while hunting Kenobi in order to get closer to Vader, trying to gain his trust so that she could enact her revenge. Obi-Wan goads her into choosing this moment to take her revenge, but it seems she decided to do so too late, though it is arguable whether it is wise to even attempt to take revenge of Vader at all. We were all then treated to a duel that goes a long way to illustrate the distance between Vader and a normal Inquisitor, not to mention a fully formed Sith Lord and an Inquisitor, having pulled an entire transport out of the air and torn into it like a ravenous predator. We were treated to seeing Lord Vader in his truest form, but why didn't Vader ever draw his own lightsaber during the entire exchange? Not once did Vader choose to use his own blade, so why is this? Well, we believe the answer is quite interesting and says a lot about Vader as well as Sidious. There are several theories here that we can put to the test, and they aren't too far-fetched to believe it all. We are led to conclude that there were several simultaneous reasons why Vader never drew upon his own lightsaber. When the Grand Inquisitor showed up at the end, it was clear that he and Vader had been conspiring against Riva for quite some time. It is possible that the GI had been warning Vader, and that he was aware of the deception of the third sister for a long time, and the Dark Lord heeded the advice of his second in command, and understood to be wary of Riva. It is probable to believe that the Grand Inquisitor's only request out of this whole process was that he would get the pleasure of watching Riva die. As we know, Riva was aboard Vader's Star Destroyer as they were over the world of Jabim, which means the Grand Inquisitor were on board, then she would have likely sensed him. Vader was probably stalling so that the Grand Inquisitor could get to the world himself, having to travel separately. However, the other answer to this question is far more likely. Vader had trained the Inquisitors himself and did not hold back in constantly showing his superiority over them, as this was how he maintained a healthy level of fear and respect among his ranks. The Inquisitors probably had to be kept under tighter reins than the other Imperial agents, simply because of the fact that they were Force sensitive and had the talents of training as a Jedi. Many dissension among their ranks were detrimental, so Vader needed to ensure that they didn't get any bright ideas of joining together to overthrow him, even though of course this likely wouldn't have worked either. Of course, even if they did join against him, Vader is far too powerful for any of them, as he truly knows the secrets and power of the dark side that only Sith are at liberty to know. When Reva charged him with her lightsaber, Vader didn't even bother drawing his, but rather waved her lightsaber and her body away using the Force, tossing Reva around like she was nothing, only using his gifts in the dark side. This was a show of power over Riva. Vader did not require grabbing his own lightsaber and using it on this underling. She did not deserve it. Darth Vader wanted to show Riva just how outclassed she truly was, and he intended to reveal to her how much of a mistake she had just made. Yes, he could have ended her easily, but what was better, slaying her where she stood in a matter of 3 strikes, or drawing out the fight, letting her expend every bit of her energy she possibly could, helplessly swinging away at the Dark Lord, and slowly realizing that she was hopelessly and humorously outmatched in every single way. Just to show how little of a threat she was to him, he took her lightsaber from her, split it in half, and even tossed her back a portion of her own weapon. He would then only use part of her weapon to so effortlessly defeat her, and then deliver the final blows. The revelation that Vader knew who she truly was, that she was a survived youngling, the reveal that the Grand Inquisitor was still alive, and of course, a double stab to the abdomen, same as before, just to remind her that she is truly nothing more than the youngling that had survived. It was grandiose, disrespectful, and fully in line with Darth Vader. Despite this, one question still remains. Why does it seem that Riva is so weak in regards to other Force wielders? Those who know about Force users' power know about something called a Force shield, a passive ability that the user generates, which is essentially an invisible bubble and shield around themselves that protects them from Force-based attacks. This is how many experienced Force users don't have their lightsabers taken from them in battle. Beyond the point of Vader trying to prove his point against Reva, that he did not need a lightsaber of his own to defeat her, it highlights exactly more the progression of Anakin Skywalker, showcasing that he does not desire to smash through his enemy anymore, and that now he has learned, and victory has not defeated him. However, Vader does not miss this moment to prove his full superiority. Back to the idea of Force shields in the heat of a lightsaber duel, however, and why Riva does not use this. If a powerful Force wielder is able to dominate another opponent's shield, they can breach it and do as they please. Several times in the series, we have seen Riva's Force shield broken like it was wet paper, and had many other Force users dominating her in many ways. The Grand Inquisitor stopped her blade from striking their target, and tossed her aside in the first episode. Later, the fifth brother held her in stasis for a long period of time. Vader, though, of course is an exception of this because of his immense power. It's clear here that Riva is out for revenge. As such, she is definitely using the dark side, and although her intentions were most likely just getting revenge on Anakin for killing her friends, her ideology is misguided. She wants to slay Vader so that she can have vengeance and stop him from killing more families, and yet she walks around being just as ruthless to innocents as any of the Inquisitors of the Imperial era. She is in conflict with herself. Despite the egregious actions, there is a part of Riva that wants to exact revenge and serve the light side, and it is this conflict, coupled with her inexperience and only receiving training as a youngling, that has caused her to become weakened in the Force, and therefore she is able to be bested by other Inquisitors. Again though, why does this matter? For anyone who is familiar with the Force, and the dark side especially, if you do not give yourself over to the dark side completely, and you remain in turmoil, you will become very weak. Darth Bane was one of the most powerful Sith to ever live, and yet there was a time that inner conflict caused him to lose his connection to the Force for a short amount of time, and he was nearly powerless until he discovered his resolve yet again. Besides this though, let's take a look at exactly what point Riva was taken in by the Inquisitors. The Grand Inquisitor claimed that she was the least of them. While this simply could have been a condescending insult to be sure, he may not be entirely off the mark. The Inquisitor training was not like the Jedi nor the Sith. They were not trained to pursue a deeper meaning in the Force, they were simply bred to kill. All of the other Inquisitors that we know of, or at least most of them, were Padawans, Knights, and even Masters. However, when they found Riva, she was still at the experience level of a youngling, regardless of what age she was found. The closest things we get to this in canon are the survivals of Cal Kestis and Kanan Jarrus. However, they were able to retain a level of experience and power regardless of how old they got, because of the fact that they had much more training than Riva, who was simply a youngling. These were Jedi Padawans who had Jedi Masters, and Riva never had this luxury. Going briefly back to Vader though, and his decision not to use a lightsaber against Riva actually directly mirrors the actions of his own master Sidious. Sidious believed that Jedi lightsabers and Sith lightsabers alike were playthings, and that he himself had grown beyond the use of them, and that he was simply too powerful to require using a lightsaber ever again. However, he did keep one on hand in case things got dicey, or at least when he wanted to insult a Jedi. This is something very similar happening here with Vader. He feels that he is so beyond Riva, which he is correct, that he does not require a lightsaber in order to defeat her. However, again, this is Anakin Skywalker, an individual obsessed with furthering his prowess in the blade, and therefore, he decided to defeat Riva on two fronts. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this important decision why Vader not using his lightsaber was so incredibly impactful to Star Wars lore and Vader as a character? What did you think of Obi-Wan Episode 5, and are you excited for the finale? As always, my friends, may the Force be with you, and I will hopefully see you in the next video.